Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another fun time with your real-life best friends, Aaron, Hans, and Zach.
Every podcast does that, and you can't also do that.
Hello. Welcome to your, we hate you, actually, your real-life enemies,
No.
Aaron, Hans, and Zach.
But you can't check your six. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like on top.
Actually, you're our enemies, invisible listener, for making us watch every Steven Seagal movie. Welcome to week 9.
We're very much doing this to ourselves.
Week 9.
I think Hans is doing this to me. Week 9, episode 9. Shit, I'm looking at Sheep Impact, not Sheep Impact. Fire Down Below. All right.
Tell us about Fire Down Below.
The year.
If you dare.
I
year.
get my notes out.
The year is 1957. Rita Hayworth, Robert Mitchum, and Jack Lemmon.
No.
The friendship between two tramp boat owners is threatened by the arrival of a beautiful and seductive passenger. Wait,
The
hold
movie
on.
we should have watched.
Look at me being goofy. That's probably a better movie. We're talking about Fire Down Below, 1997, 9th feature film starring Steven Seagal. This is actually wild. I have the IMDb page open. It's just showing random clips from this movie with no context at straight up VHS quality. It's amazing.
We're going to talk about film quality.
Uh-huh.
Oh, don't worry. Yeah, of course. Actually, wait. This is literally an advertisement for the VHS. So it's not even. That was straight up a VHS trailer. Anyway, Steven Seagal again back on his environmental crusade. We thought he kind of moved on from that after SNL and On Deadly Ground. He is back. Our man, a true unproblematic king who cares about the environment.
In really specific weird ways.
In very specific weird ways.
Okay, but I want to talk. We're going to talk about the environmental message of this movie because it's the whole movie.
Yeah.
But it does make one good point.
I think is this very end of the movie? Are we talking last 15 minutes here?
Yes.
Okay, cool. We'll get there. All right. He is an undercover EPA agent because I guess undercover EPA agents are a thing now. They receive a letter from Kentucky, so we are in Appalachia. Sorry for you who say it Appalachian and Appalachia, but as a real Appalachian man myself, we're going to say it correctly this episode. A company that digs up coal is not harming the environment by coal pollution. They are harming the environment by being paid to bury radioactive waste in their coal mines. Do I have that right?
Yes. Yeah, it's dead coal mines that they bury stuff in.
Agent Jack Taggart, actually, weirdly enough, one of his names that I could remember pretty well, goes to investigate.
That's because they say it a million times.
They say all of his names a million times, though. And
but this one's stuck.
They don't actually. In a lot of the other ones, they only mention his name once or twice. This one, they say his character's name all the time.
Well, the one where he played, now I'm gonna say Michael Scarn, because I know that's not it. But they say his name a million times, and I don't remember it. I just think Michael Scarn. But this one's Jack Taggart.
It's kind of catchy. I like Jack. I don't like Jack Taggart, but the name Jack Taggart sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Christopherson owns this entire part. He owns every politician, so he is just free to do whatever environmental damage he wants to do with no impunity. With impunity? With no impunity? Do I have that?
With impunity.
With impunity. And basically Steven Seagal, it's so strange because he's endearing himself to the locals, but this also feels like a very anti-Appalachian film. I'm feeling some strong hicks stereotyping and denigrating here, despite ostensibly he's trying to help the locals. It feels like he's here to help the locals, but also wants to make sure they know that they're dumb the entire time. Mm-hmm. His disguise is of a relief effort, so he is fixing people's porches. I kept thinking of I Can Fix That from Holes, also a much better movie.
It gives off Holes vibes.
His whole romance with the gal from CSI Crime Scene Investigation gives a very Holes romance, only much less charming because Steven Seagal. Yeah, he comes so close. He says straight up just I can fix your porch. He comes so close to I Can Fix That. But it's not as iconic. then, boy, it gets weird because this movie progresses like you would expect any Steven Seagal movie to progress. And then when it would stop, there was still like 20 minutes left.
And it
I was
became
like,
very
what
tiring.
is going on here?
You feel those last 20 minutes.
Actually, I would have to disagree. I felt the first hour and 20 minutes, and then the last 20 minutes was a breeze.
Well, hold on.
Really?
Yeah.
It tries to get too smart for its own good in the last 20 minutes. So basically, he foils the plot. He stops the bad guy. But the bad guy gets away because, he's a rich man. And he just pays like a small fine until he gets away with it. So Seagal just goes full loose cannon on him. Beats up people trying to arrest the guy. And shoots him and sends him to jail. And yeah, I think that's all the major... obviously, we'll get into it more. But I think those are, the main beats
those
there.
are the major plot beats.
Yeah.
And that takes
really
an hour
made
and
me
45
feel-
minutes.
Really made me feel crappy because the whole like making millions and millions and millions of dollars for dumping illegal garbage in the ground and then getting fined $50,000 and walking away, that just like happens every day.
Well, so that's what I'm talking about.
Not when Agent Jack Taggart is on the case.
That's what I was talking about.
When he quits and doesn't quit.
It just hurts.
Oh,
it's painful.
Well, so that's this movie's one good point, I think.
You mean? No, you're right.
That's where I thought you were going to go with this.
Like, at what would be the end of the movie, and it felt like the end of the movie.
It really did. It so does.
He goes to court, the judge says, okay, $25,000 plus another $25,000 for this and this. And the guy literally walks out of the courtroom saying, I made $30 million this year and it only cost me $50,000. And then, like, Jack Taggart confronts him, and it feels like the movie's going to end there on, like, a sad note, and you might get, like, a text scroll of, like, this is how, big corporate leaders are treated by the law, and we need to make changes. World. We need to make changes to how this is done. And it could have been a bad movie with a good point at the end, but it just kept going because Seagal needs to shoot the villain. Like, that has to happen in the movie. And went on for 20 more minutes.
And it's funny because it feels like Chris Christopherson is still trying to have fun with this. Mm-hmm. He's still trying to, just make it somewhat pleasant, but it felt like he was tired of it by the end too. That whole extended conversation they have at the poker table, my man was done.
Yeah.
Especially when Seagal makes multiple, I'm going to make sure you get raped in prison threats.
Yeah.
Chris Christopherson's like, what? It just feels like he's like, what are we doing here?
It takes forever. Like, he says it 3 times. Like,
if he just did a full, I'm not going to let you get away with it, and he just, loose cannon kills the guy, and it was 5 more minutes, I could have tolerated that. But it, just goes on for way too long. Yeah. There's a whole weird scene when, okay, actually, maybe we should come back to the, I don't know.
Let's go back to the beginning.
This is what most podcasts do. They talk about the ending of the movie first.
Well, because the ending is the weirdest part of this movie, but we need to build up to it.
Well, here's what's weird. Very beginning, literally first 5 seconds, cold open immediately into flashback is... reaching.
That was a choice. So I have in my notes, I have a couple different theories on this. So one, I think the simplest theory was they filmed all this as part of the movie, realized the movie was going to be 2.5 hours and not very good, and needed to just crush all the exposition.
I think it has to.
And they did it in the title sequence.
That's put a whole crap load of fake film grain in there.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing.
And then so it's definitely flashbacks. It's framed like flashbacks, but it's all new information.
Because he's thinking about this while he flies. It's for context. His buddy, another EPA agent, was killed, so then he's assigned to go down next. He's flying his plane down to Appalachia. It feels like this was shot this happens, and then he flies down to Appalachia, but then, like you said, they change it, so he's just flashing back to this while he flies down. Yeah. So he just... I mean, it could be they realized it was too long, or it could be Seagal was wait a minute, the first 10 minutes of this movie aren't about me, and we need to start Seagal. That's one of my speculation.
You say he flies down Appalachia. What you mean is he actually flies a single-man plane down to Appalachia, down to wherever they go. And that's never referenced again. He gets out of the plane, and it's just sitting on the runway, and then the preacher drives him on to the rest of the movie. And the plane just sits there. And throughout all of those scenes, they do their best to cut it so that there's something obstructing the cockpit so you can't see that it's not Steven Seagal. But you can definitely tell that it's not Steven Seagal in that plane.
Oh, absolutely. I think actually we don't need to delve into this too much, but out of all the movies, this is probably the one where I think the stunt doubling of Seagal is the most obvious. There is an extended, 20-second long running shot. that is purely shot from the back, like only from behind, and like it is one that you watch and you're like, oh, that's not Seagal. Oh, that's
I know how that man runs, and that's not it.
Even if I didn't know how he runs, you're just like, it's too obvious.
Well, also, just like speaking about how, the stunt doubles were used, did anyone, just the way that this movie looks, there are certain moments where, like, is he being filmed on a rear projection screen?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's one of my, not favorite moments in the movie, but one that I did find particularly amusing.
Yeah.
During the truck chase later on.
Yeah. It looks like 1940s cinema.
This absurd chase where he is in like a little pickup. I mean, it's like reasonable to normal size pickup for the time, and a Mack truck. And you know how like a lot of times in these car chases, vehicles will like be side to side and bump into each other, and like they're roughly equal weight, so they can bump off each other.
So much to
the
say
fact that
this.
he's like pushing against a fully loaded Mack truck, but
we're
anyway,
doing it again.
Like
we're not even close to that.
Okay, but to your point, there's 100% the shot where like he's parked sideways and the truck is coming at him to hit him. That is the most rear projection, like 1950s rear projection looking thing possible.
Yep.
And I swear, I had to like go back and look at this. When he pulls forward, when like his truck moves out of frame, you can literally see like a solid couple inches of like it's cut off.
I thought I was going nuts. You can see the edges of the rear
There's
projection
just like
screen.
a black edge of the rear project. And I've seen like a lot of like, you know, when you're watching a movie, you can tell that this is the technique they're doing because like an object will move in the background and have no parallax or depth to it.
Yeah.
Which, especially risky choice to literally make the only thing happening in the background a Mack truck headed directly towards you when you don't have any 3D parallax or depth.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a movie where literally the edge is like cut off because you have inches of like not screen there. I don't know how that happened, but I went back and looked
just to show you the level of craft going into this thing.
The same reason that in the last movie when he's what's it called? Like jumping down the side of the building.
Oh, that you just see the person
and you can see
you
can see that an arm from one of the like people on set holding this pole that holds the line in so he doesn't jump too far away from the building. They just didn't edit that out.
Well, so the editor for this movie also did Under Siege 1.
Well, man, it's going downhill
on our hands. Okay, except I'm not going to say that editing is good, but I think this one felt unlike any other Seagal movie. This did not feel like the same editing problems of another Seagal movie. It still had issues, but it felt differently paced. Something about it just felt...
It felt different because he was actually trying to come up with some kind... Like, his character had some kind of connection with the world around him and the people around him instead of them just sort of existing in his world. That was what was weird 100%. For me.
100%. And because of that, like... Well, it's in like a different way. No, cause to Hans's point, like... I touched on this in my Letterboxd review. Shout out, letterboxd.com/Zach_Weiberg. In my review of this, I talked about that. Like, I'm not going to say he's a charismatic, charming man, but this definitely feels like the one where he most, like, there will just be scenes of him talking to other characters, which is not weird in a movie. It's very normal. It's like mostly what movies are, but I realize, like, as I'm watching, it's very weird in a Steven Seagal movie.
Yeah.
Like, he cannot get away with just vaguely stringing together one-liners.
No.
He still does sometimes. But for a lot of this movie, he actually has conversation-length conversations.
Yeah. Which
should not be weird and isn't good, but also isn't bad. I don't truly know how I feel about it, but it does make the whole movie feel different.
Well, I think a lot of those conversations are him just telling the other character how they feel.
Yes.
Like, you are frustrated because this happened to you in your past, and you are taking it out in this way, and then I'm gonna punch you in the nuts.
It's
like that.
It's part that. It's definitely part that, but it's also like the other part of that is that he has no emotion. Like everybody else, the people he's talking to are displaying some kind of emotion, whether that be like sadness or anger or even just plain neutrality, and he displays nothing. Just absolutely nothing. Gives absolutely nothing back. He just has like this like half smirk on his face even when he's delivering the most heartbreaking news. There's
exactly one scene where he gives like a full smirk and it's so annoying. I just wanted to smack him in the face. He gives like the most like annoying smirk I've ever seen a person give. But yes, outside of that, it's just a half smirk. And he could be saying like, boy howdy, the weather down here sure is crazy, and like, hey, I know you molested your sister as a kid, with the exact same tone and look on his face.
Which, spoiler alert, he does.
Spoiler alert, the bad guy, the general from Avatar and Avatar: The Way of Water.
Oh, wow. Oh yeah.
Shows up in this movie as...
That's what I recognized him from.
The problem is when he shows up, I'm just like, okay, is the way he talks to his sister just creepy because like all of these movies are weird and creepy? About
I
women,
couldn't
and later
tell.
on, I'm like, okay, actually no. In fiction, he is
in
straight
fiction
up,
he is
like,
a big creeper. Yeah.
So you have to give him props because literally within the first scene, I'm like, this guy's weird. When he's like, hey, little sister, I'm back. I'm like, okay, this is...
Okay.
Oh. So at least that was justified. Steven Seagal being creepy is not justified. The fact that he gets on a high horse about a person committing sex crimes is ludicrous considering the person delivering these lines. But we don't need to get into that.
But like, so yeah, talking about like the editing, I don't think the editing didn't feel a lot like other Steven Seagal movies. I think the cinematography, to get real film nerdy, did feel like the other Steven Seagal
the mise
films.
en scene,
like the way things are framed.
Yeah, yeah.
Felt very Steven Seagal, like the way that everything is way too close. And you can't really tell what's going on in a scene. And of
course, the way he like interacts with people in 3D space is very Seagal-y.
Yeah,
but it just feels it's a different pace, I guess.
Yeah,
to the Steven Seagal movie.
Yeah, so like talking about like that car chase battle, whatever that was. Like it was hard to tell what's going on, and things are moving around in space. At one point he's on one side of the truck, and on the other point
we're jumping ahead again.
I know.
No. I want to say, wait, hold on. I have a zinger for that.
Yeah.
It temporarily turns into Fat Max Fury Road. Boom. Okay. I mean, are we jumping ahead? Do we even need to talk about this?
I just
one
of the things I want to say about this movie in general
is
that it's a slog. Like I didn't have fun watching this.
The first probably 2/3 of the movie were just a complete slog, and the last third it picked up and then it got better and sort of different from your experiences.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the last 20 minutes. That flew by. As unrealistic and out of character for a Seagal movie as it was. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it. But yeah, definitely the first, probably for me at least, 2/3 of this movie, I kept looking at how much I had left and thinking, oh my god, there's so much of this movie left. I was not having a good time. It was rough.
I will say I'm kind of the fence sitter in this one, I guess, where for the first like 30 minutes or so, for the first like 30-40 minutes, I was truly like, I don't know if I'm gonna get through this movie, honestly. Like I might cheat and just like Wikipedia the ending or something. Like this is awful. It didn't grab me, it didn't invest in me, but I like ended up being weirdly, I don't even know why I ended up, but like I ended up getting slightly more positive on it about like 45, a little way into the movie. And then it wasn't really a slog. It wasn't that I really loved it. The last 15 minutes were just strange. Like, it took too long.
Yeah.
But that's when I was actually, like, engaged. Yeah. Purely because I'm like, what is happening? What?
Yeah, so, like, after this movie has two endings.
Like, he's killing the guy, but then not killing the guy, but then killing him again, but then not killing him. Like, it's so
for me, like, the climax of the first ending, which is the shootout in the cave, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, the shootout in the abandoned coal mine. I thought was like there were enough explosions and gunshots and stuff to like keep my lizard brain like goop. Attention. The radioactive Nickelodeon slime.
I have that in my notes. I haven't written down as glow stick water because that's exactly. It's like if you broke open a glow stick. That's exactly what it looks like.
But it's like
it was so cheesy.
When they're going into the cave, he makes a comment like, "Oh, I bet this stuff will glow green," and I'm like, "Okay, that's like a dumb Seagal line." And when when the thing starts bursting and it's literally going green, I'm like, "You have got to be kidding me!" Yeah. It does not look like that. But then it's radioactive goop, but it's like it burns like acid, like it's.
Yeah, but it doesn't kill anybody. Like no one is actually directly harmed.
Well, maybe 30 years
killing
from
the
now.
Brother.
Well, no, and 30 years from now, when they all have like late stage like melanoma or something.
No, because it killed the brother. He got out of the cave.
Did he?
Then Seagal says he died.
He got crushed by rocks.
He got crushed by rocks.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Then what happened to all the guys that got out of the cave?
Nobody. So okay. I want to do this. I want to do this experiment with this movie. So Zach, you said this is more of a character-focused movie, having conversations. What is the ultimate fate of all these characters? Like, what happened to them? Did the minister die?
Yes. Oh, the minister absolutely died.
Where? When?
In the church fire?
Well, you don't actually see his body, but
no, because he has a conversation with. So he says, "Is the minister in there?" And everyone says, "I don't know."
Okay, but
and you don't see him again.
Okay, but I'm going to need you to use the option permanence in your brain. That when they show I do have to give the movie this. They show a character with a gun walking into the church right before the church is on fire.
Yeah.
I don't think he's just chilling on a beach.
No, but like I just felt like there was no closure about that. What happens to all the guys that run out of the cave? I don't know.
No, it doesn't really get too into the weeds and all those. Maybe you can kind of imagine some of those ministers dead. Like, the thing is, you actually, you could have even had less information and known he was dead. Like, the absolute second he says, oh, don't worry, I'll go and testify, I'm like, okay, he dies next scene.
Yeah.
And he dies next scene. Like, no, he's dead. They didn't find the body, but he's dead.
For me, the movie gave me less information, I would be more sure that he's dead. But it gave me...
You think specifically, though, where's the body, we don't know.
Yeah, the fact that they bring it up made me like expect it at some point, and it just never happened.
Okay, but we've been over this. This happens every movie. Like, oh, that seems like that was set up to be a relevant thing later, and then it wasn't.
Yeah,
that's happened every movie. In any other movie that would come up.
What does it take to be what does it take to change a man?
Yeah,
and how he just never came back up again.
Never came back up again.
This happens all the time.
While we're in here, while we're talking about this cave, like, the whole thing is the dumping toxic chemicals in the cave, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we go into the cave, they're not dumping anything.
Everything seems properly stored.
A crap load, just a ton of blue barrels.
That's how you store.
No leaking or anything. They're just everywhere. They walk in and he says, "Oh, here's the mother load." Like, what? Okay.
If they had just sealed that inside of like a concrete cask, you're right. It would 100% just be like the way radioactive waste is stored.
Like,
if they put it underground and properly sealed inside.
That is actually how we currently properly dispose of radioactive and dangerous materials. Is you like take abandoned salt and coal mines, and you put it down in there. Like, that's how you do it.
This is like in a corrupt way.
And that's exactly what they're doing. And the whole time they're talking about how, we see weird lights back there. Well, that's the choppers flying in like 8 barrels at a time, which I think is hilarious. And then there's also we see like this weird smoke and stuff, but they never explain where the smoke comes from because all it is barrels. They're not like draining the barrels. I'm so confused as to where the pollution. Maybe it's probably wrong to store this material in these barrels in the ground or whatever, but they aren't dumping anything. There's
legitimately, like, the first, like, I don't know, until like 2/3 of the way through this movie, I just assumed it was like a coal, like it was a coal related type of pollution. Like they have some kind, like something's leaching into the water. Like I really assumed it was more relevant. I still have no idea why it became we're being paid to store radioactive waste. Like, coal makes pollution. I need, like, the process of mining and also burning coal, like, every step of the way makes a form of pollution.
Yeah.
And, like, it really felt like for the first, like, I don't know if they pivoted or changed it, like, or if they just wanted this, like, cool glowing goop or something. It could have been the very same movie. It was just, this coal mine is polluting the waters. Like,
you didn't need the radioactive
that
goop.
Kills fish.
It could have literally just been, like, some coal mine operator who's hiding.
I'm not gonna say you don't need it though, because whenever it like turns out it is really like glowing green liquid, I laughed and that's fun.
It was very funny.
Oh, I was laughing hysterically.
It was very funny.
Ridiculous.
But you could take that out, and the movie still does everything that the movie does narratively.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it doesn't change the narrative at all.
No, it's very confused about
glowing
itself.
Green goop. Actually, it makes it more confusing
about itself.
Yeah, I don't wish to be mean to Jeb Stewart and Philip Morton, but. What were you doing, guys? Wait, this guy wrote Die Hard?
What?
And The Fugitive?
What?
Huh.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on.
Jeb what Stewart. Happened?
What were you doing here, Jeb Stewart? I know you can do better. What did Philip Morton do? Philip Morton, maybe you can't do better, but Jeb Stewart, you can do better.
Can I go down through some of my notes here?
Yeah, of course.
The whole movie, you can't hear a freaking thing this guy says. He's like talking in a hush whisper the entire time. Yep. I was constantly like raising and lowering volume, raising it to hear whatever whatever garbage he was saying, and then having to lower it because everything else was basically screaming out of my speakers.
I was hesitant to put that in my notes because I thought maybe it's just like my copy of the movie or. Nope.
No, this is the worst, like, constantly needed to be on the remote movie I've seen in a while.
Well, and the whole time, like, he'll be talking to a character it's 50 feet away from him, and they're yelling, and he's just, like, talking in a real hushed whisper.
If you can get Steven Seagal to talk above that whisper, I will pay you
it was just
everything
it was
in my bank account.
Infuriating to listen to. The whole time was infuriating to listen to. It was infuriating to watch, too, because his ponytail is so
it's so bad
long in this one, and it's
like
rat's
past the
nest in there.
shoulder
It's
blades.
Again, I've said this every single time we've talked about it. If a ponytail is your thing, that's fine. I don't care.
Whatever.
You know, I don't judge people. I'm not going to judge anybody for what they want their style to be. If you can pull it off, more power to you. That's awesome. This man, one, he can't pull it off.
Hey,
Two,
this almost won in the presidential election.
It's a greasy rat's nest. It's not made like the rest of his hair is like slicked back and at least it looks relatively decent. And then the ponytail is just this frayed, like rat's nest coming off of his shoulders, and it's so long. Oh,
you're not wrong.
Early on in the movie,
I think this is the worst ponytail so far.
Oh, definitely. Early on in the movie, he's like getting water samples, and then there's this kid that pees in the water that's like going down into his sample. This has nothing to do with anything.
This has nothing to do with anything. He finds like a secret marijuana farm
after.
Up in the mountains.
Yeah, he finds this farm, but like on his way to finding the farm, they do the like, I don't know, they do the film thing where they show the kids running, like, but they only like show his legs as he's running, and then they swap to Seagal's legs as he's running, and they like swap back and forth between the two. You know what I mean? And the kid is obviously running, and then Seagal is like at a light jog, and then he slows down.
Not even a jog.
He's like, like he's just like walking, and then he slows down almost to a stop before they cut it short. Like they could only get a certain number of seconds of him running on screen.
So we
they
might be approaching the last run. That might have been we can only get 5 seconds at a time of like a half jog.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
We might be getting to this faded last run that we're all waiting for.
What else is interesting? Oh, the whole time he's in like leather pants, leather jacket, leather boots.
Oh, the outfits.
Multiple leather outfits.
Yeah, and he's fixing people's like roofs and steps and porches and stuff, and he's supposed to be working all day in the hot sun,
like
and the man is wearing
jacket.
Yeah, deerskin jacket, leather pants,
black leather
boots.
jackets, like an amazing and the Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat jacket at one point.
Oh, there's
his
so
Native
many
American frills. Also, so this my ongoing theory that literally like anytime Steven Seagal's character has to do like some kind of manual task with his hands, it is not Steven Seagal doing it. We have like half a second of a full body shot of Seagal like sawing a 2x4, and then everything else after that is extreme close up of just the hands. Like there's no way Seagal did anything.
Or like he's just admiring a finished product. Like
like similar you know, in Under Siege where he's a chef and like every single knife shot is so close up that it could be anyone's hands. Mm-hmm. Alexa, shut up! Jeez, why do you only do this when I'm recording the podcast? Similarly here, there was like they got one shot of this man using a saw, and that is literally for an entire movie where his character is pretending to be like a guy who fixes porches.
Oh, but they absolutely wanted you to know that he really was playing guitar with Marty Stewart.
Oh, they did.
Yep.
Yeah, can we talk about the music in this movie?
Yeah, go
yeah, and how there are like 1,000 needle drops, and they're all bad, and they only get through like half of the first chorus of all of them.
Okay, some of the songs are somewhat decent. They're not all bad.
No, they're not all bad. I'm being facetious.
But you're right. They only go through like just the first like 10 seconds, and that's it.
Although it is very obvious. So something that's interesting is there are just half of the song. Maybe not, I don't know if it's exactly half and half, but some of the songs in this movie just already exist, like our country songs. And then mixed in, like very stealthily, Seagal puts his own songs in there, whether produced by him or he's playing guitar in them or whatever. Yeah. But it is quite obvious which ones are his. When that like "Snake in the Grass" song came on, I'm like, you've got like Seagal, you cannot get that by me. Who do you think I am?
I really need. Well, I don't want to, but I think I need to listen to his music.
Is he on Spotify?
What's weird?
He's gotta be on Spotify.
I know songs from the Crystal Cave or whatever it's called is. I don't know if his other album is actually weirdly harder to find, even though from what I understand he promoted it more. Like he went on tour to help promote it. Wow. Anyway, the weird thing about this, I think this record. I'm not certain. The weird thing is that like this came out in 97 and his first album didn't come out till 2006. I kept thinking that this was like his like attempting to get into music. I kept thinking that he had to have had, you know, other than the soundtrack to the movie itself. Yeah. But I'm like, when does he start doing music? He doesn't start doing it for like 10 more years.
Wow.
I kept thinking that this had to be like him trying to get into music, because this is the movie where rather than just like half the cast being like random stuntmen, half of the cast in this movie is like country music artists.
Yeah.
Like most of the actors in this movie, like if it's not the dude from Avatar or the gal from CSI or Harry Dean Stanton from Harry Dean Stanton, it is like some country musician. It's very weird. Like the corrupt sheriff, like you look him up, he's a country musician. Like Chris Christopherson.
Chris Christopherson,
but he's also, you know, I know him from Blade, so you know he actually does have some acting outside of music. All the other guys, like, they just don't act. They're in this movie and they do like country, bluegrass, soul music.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the car chase?
Yeah, let's talk about the car
chase. You mean the truck chase? You mean Fat Max Fury Road?
You sound upset, Aaron. What's wrong?
It's just I was upset by this car chase because it's just so.
Stop calling it a car chase.
It's so
whatever this is.
He's driving down the road in like an old, I couldn't even tell you the year, but it's an old 50s pickup. And then there's this Mack truck barreling down the road behind him. And it's kind of the same as, I don't remember which movie it was, where he's like sees that he's being closed in on by all these vehicles.
Yes.
And just kind of rolls with it until the last second when he's actively being murdered. Was the same situation. Was it? Which one did he have?
I mentioned it in my Letterboxd review. You keep talking. I'll look that up real quick.
Okay. Well, so he sees this truck barreling down the road and gets like really, really close to him, and he just doesn't even respond until it hits him first, and then he looks in the mirror like, "Oh, it's going down," which is infuriating to say the least. Then the truck like slams into him, and he starts to accelerate away, and this movie, this absolute like dumpster fire of a film, tries to make me believe that his pickup cannot outrun a fully loaded down semi.
It can't outrun, but also it can perfectly match in like the competition of strength.
And it goes on for so long. There's so many moments. It's a completely empty road. It's not like a busy highway. It's a completely empty back road. There are a million moments where he could have slammed on the brakes and just stopped the truck, and the semi would have gone barreling down the road because there's no possible way that it could stop in the same amount of time with a fully loaded trailer. Like, there was so much so obviously wrong with this scene, so he just keeps like slamming into the side of it, and the truck slams him back, and he like I was infuriated watching this because it was just so awful.
And
every
then
piece of it was
very
so
much
awful.
It very much tries to end it in a way that it thinks is cool, but is dumber than everything that came before it. How he has like parked sideways and he has the truck run himself off a cliff, and very clearly nobody's in the truck. Like they have a really long shot showing the entirety of the interior of the truck and no one's driving it.
It's
well, and also like
about it.
I want to like the editing of this whole sequence was very frustrating to me.
I had to rewatch it because I just like at times I'm like, what is going on?
What is happening? Like everything is shot really close, so like you don't see the whole chase. You don't see like the truck and the Mack truck next to each other.
Like 2 shots in total that have all of that.
Yeah, and like when they show like Seagal's truck, it's like just the front end or like just a couple wheels. Like it's never the whole scene.
On him.
Or just a close up on him sitting in front of his rear projection screen. Like it's never the whole thing, so you never
but the rear projection screen part of it is a little charming. I did like enjoy that.
It's not rear projection screen is charming in Airplane when they're like driving like really casually down a road and the projection screen behind them is like flying back and forth with cows going over the hood of the car. That's charming.
I think one of my favorite gags is in Police Squad whenever it's like playing in reverse the whole time, like he's driving backwards, but it's like literally just reverse footage. Or when he's driving through Little Italy and there's like the Coliseum and the Leaning Tower of Pisa behind him.
Stop talking about better movies.
You just want to make me watch Police Squad.
You should watch Police Squad.
Recently. The 3 people out there listening to this, only one of whom isn't our parents, go watch Police Squad.
Actually, our parents should watch Police Squad too, but
I need to ask my dad what he thinks of Police Squad.
Well, does your dad have thoughts on this movie?
He was out of town. I didn't get to talk to him about Fire Down Below.
By the way, Hans, yes, this was it was marked for death. That he's just like sees 2 construction vehicles boxing him, and then he just like shrugs until it happens. So you did not get his opinions on this one, Aaron?
No, he was out of town. But anyway, no, but what really like put the icing on the frustration cake for me in this whole sequence is when the truck finally does come off the cliff and you like see it descending. It's like the only wide shot you get of anything, and halfway through the descent, you cut to another like close-up shot of the truck, and then you cut back, and then it hits the water. And I was robbed of catharsis. Like it was horrible.
Wow, that's what they should title this movie. Steven Seagal is robbed of catharsis.
That's every movie I've watched of these so far. That's like 9 in a row.
And anytime you think, oh, this could be good, it's good for like 2 seconds, and then something comes in and rubs it.
Yeah, they just throw in this extra thing that you didn't need.
It's like when he shotgun blasts the dude in the dick and then kicks the guy. Shotgun blasts the guy's leg off and then kicks the dude so hard that he dies. Yeah. And then everything else after that sucks. It's like a solid like 3 seconds. That's fun, and that's it.
Like it has these little moments.
Denied.
It has these little moments where it's like, "Oh, I'm going to show you something good," and then pulls the rug out from under you every time.
Yep.
Every single time.
So in that way, it is very much edited like a Seagal film.
Yes.
There were a pretty solid amount of good quotes in here, though.
I had some good ones.
Okay, I had some good ones, but I had like none from Seagal.
None of them came from him.
I don't think I've ever had.
Because I was like trying. I'm like, I need at least a Seagal quote. That's kind of none. There was like
he talks like the most in this movie, and I don't remember like anything he said.
No, 100%.
This is the most he's talked in one of these movies, and I put a gun to my head. I couldn't tell you anything he said. I can tell you like in general and like in generalities what he was talking about.
Oh, actually, I can tell you one of the things he said, because when he's confronting her brother, and he just assumes, after knowing this woman for a very short amount of time and not actually understanding anything about her past, she didn't tell him anything about her past.
Nope.
He just assumes that this guy molested her and like actually killed their dad and then blamed it on the sister, even though she
very
was
complex
a minor or whatever.
It's crazy. See, that's the thing. He doesn't even just say you did something bad. He like lays out specifically like this happened and then this happened and then this happened and then this happened.
Yeah,
and
there's absolutely no possible way that he could have known any of that.
He actually does that a couple times throughout this movie.
Okay, it's funny though, because earlier in the movie he's like sitting down and he's in front of like a microfilm reader and he's looking through old newspapers of like this woman. And I'm like, I was shocked. I was like, this is actually the first time his character's not even like a detective in this movie.
No, but he's doing detective stuff. This is the first time he's doing anything that actually approaches detective work. But then you get to the end, and I'm like, oh, my man is swinging for the fences based on nothing. He read like
he does the most work, but then also just does the most outrageous claims, so it completely negates anything that looks like detective work.
Yeah, it's just absolutely absurd.
He does this like a few times throughout the movie. Like, that's the most shocking and, like, the biggest one, I think, and deserves the most criticism, probably. But he just, like, strolls into town and repeats back to everybody their life stories based on nothing. Nothing. He just knows who all the characters are in this movie. Because I think to him, it's a movie. Like, the character is aware that he's in a film.
Or it's just like every dumb hick town is the same dumb hick town to him. So he's like, oh, you're the guy that does this. You're the guy that does this.
Yeah. Can we talk about how this film treats Appalachia?
Well, actually, wait. I think Hans.
Oh, yeah. Go, Hans.
You wanted to share a quote?
Oh,
or you were talking about, or you were talking about, we kind of interrupted you. We were talking about, like,
you're
this
good.
is the Seagal thing that you remember.
Yeah. No, that was it. That was just the hit that he, like, knew everybody's life story.
Okay, no. So that's what I mean. What were some actual words that he used?
Oh, I don't know. I just don't know. He told he just said to the brother, like, here's exactly what happened, and I know I know this to be fact.
Yeah.
And
I can do that.
Similarly, I could tell you in this conversation, he's generally communicating this idea, but normally I can say, like, I'm a made man, God made men. Like, I can think of exact words that there's not a single one.
I'm going to take you to the bank. The blood bank.
See, the closest I come to this is when he's at the party and he makes, like, the really annoying smirk at the guy. That's the closest thing that comes to a quote that I remember, and it's a expression.
I have 3 quotes and none of them are from Seagal.
Yeah, I can talk in generalities about what he was talking about, but I can't tell you any of the words that he used. And he uses more words in this movie than any other movie. And
they're all wasted. Let's do our favorite quotes and then talk about this film's depiction of rural Appalachia.
Oh my gosh. Okay, can I go first? I have a good one.
Yeah.
So Chris Christopherson has my favorite line in this movie. I have a lot of money. I'll give you some to go away.
Just very blunt. Very tit for tat.
He's like very open. His character is super open about the fact that he like, I think
isn't he literally like pulling out like dollar bills or something when he does that?
No.
They were
just,
like
he does that at one
just
point
on the bridge.
Yeah,
that's right. He does that at one point where he's literally like counting.
Yeah, so after Seagal plays guitar and impresses Marty Stewart with how good he is at guitar, which they don't let Marty Stewart play mandolin in this movie, and that upset me.
Yeah, it's the only thing that upset me.
But it's one of the many things that upset me. And then he like walks away and has this conversation with Chris Christopherson, and he says, "I have a lot of money. I'll give you some to go away."
See, oh wait, actually, I can think of some Seagal words. What's the when he says, "I'm gonna bring 20 agents down with me and shove a gun up every orifice till you have to go to the proctologist and get a cream or something." That's the closest I can remember. That's the closest I can get to remembering quotes.
I remember him mentioning that. Because
somebody
else
like has the
about
confrontation with the sheriff, and he like shoves the handgun really deeply into like a dude's mouth.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah.
My favorite, also my favorite quote is also probably Chris Christopherson. When his son is like, "Let me take him out, Dad," and he says, "You couldn't take out a cheeseburger in a drive-through."
You couldn't take a cheeseburger out of a drive-through window.
Yes,
that was my number 2.
I love that. That was my immediately. I'm like, yes. I was worried at first, like, because Chris Christopherson appears for like 1 or 2 brief scenes before that, and I was like, oh no, is this going to be the On Deadly Ground problem where like it has these really cool like character actors and completely waste them? And he says that, I'm like, okay, no, actually, Chris Christopherson is going to be dope in this one. Like, we can at least say that. He's going to be fun.
Cheeseburger out of a drive-through
window. And he says it with like the perfect, like disappointed dad Southern accent. It's great. So what's your number 1, Hans?
So let me give you my runner-up. When the like gang of guys that's there specifically to repel all of the people that are trying to investigate the mine.
By just being generally unpleasant, but anyway.
Yeah, when they first come in contact with Seagal and he beats the crap out of them, and they go back to the bar to talk to the Chris Christopherson's son about whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about this guy's actually dangerous, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a bunch of like background talk. Like it's none of these lines are actually important. But one of them goes, "We might need a grenade launcher." Just like out of nowhere. It's not connected to anything. It's just like, man, this guy's good. We're going to need more help to take him out, whatever. And one of them goes, "We might need a grenade launcher."
Yes.
I like to think whoever said that, like his character in universe was just like begging to get a grenade launcher for like weeks. And he finally found
and he was like, finally my excuse. A guy. A single guy. That's my reason.
My best line.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
A guy who is weak to bullets like every other guy.
I wish I could remember who said this, and I can't remember who said this, but it was somebody talking to Seagal. I think it was actually the brother talking to Seagal. Says, "Ain't you slicker than possum?"
I do like that.
It's just so good. My second favorite comes near the end of the movie, when he has moved on from the EPA. Now he's working with the FBI or something.
Okay, so it's because he says he quit. He's not in the EPA anymore, so you assume that he's with like another agency that has more power. But then later he goes like, "I didn't actually quit," and I'm like, "Okay, I don't know what is happening." Sure. Like that was my assumption too. For like 10 minutes was, he is now with a place that he can higher rank then. But then he's like, "Actually, I still work for the EPA," so I don't know what the hell.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, he goes into the bar and just like starts picking fights with everybody because he doesn't care anymore.
Yes, as you do.
And somebody shouts, "He's gonna beat you like a redheaded stepchild." And I like that. For context, I am redheaded. I am not a stepchild.
Well, I'm glad you liked that.
I did like that. I thought it was funny.
They use rented mule a couple times too.
Yeah, I actually have a theory. So again, going back to the writers of this, I don't know if these lines can be attributed to Jeb Stewart or Philip Moore, and I am going... Oh, actually, okay, never mind, I take it back. So Jeb Stewart at least grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I was going to make the comment that it feels like this was written by people who have not spent any meaningful time in the South or Appalachia, but I don't know. Maybe I guess I'm wrong.
Well,
Jeb Stewart, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call your Appalachian credentials into question.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna blame this one on Philip Morton again. Philip Morton, you ain't never been to Appalachia. You don't know what you're talking about. Here, I'm gonna look him up and I'm gonna find out that actually he was born in like Kentucky.
He was born in Louisa, Kentucky, and
that would be amazing.
Where's he from?
I'm looking. Philip Morton. Oh, it doesn't say. What? He doesn't have a Wikipedia page. And on IMDb, it doesn't say where he was born.
Really?
It just says he was a pro screenwriter for 20 years and nominated for several awards.
Hopefully he did better after this movie.
He didn't really.
Oh.
Yeah, so hold on, Fire Down Below. He was on Kenny the Shark. It looks like a kids' TV show. I've never heard of any of these. Maneater, a TV movie.
Did one episode of Kenny the Shark.
Oh, Malibu Dan, the Family Man.
8
episodes. I'm gonna assume that this man, he never set foot.
No.
In rural Kentucky.
I'm sorry, Philip.
Anyway, so transitioning into the treatment of the Appalachian people in the Appalachian region.
Yeah. I have a special attachment to Appalachia and the people of Appalachia, seeing as I live in what could arguably be called Appalachia. I will admit I'm on the edge.
You're a little.
I'm on the eastern edge of Appalachia. But I spend a lot of time in that region, and I like it very much. I like the history and the music, and this attempts to paint that in a positive light, like that region of the country. However, 85% of the characters who are actually Appalachian are just horrible. Like Steven Seagal comes into town and people are just like immediately horrible to him.
Mm-hmm. Like, who's this city slicker here?
Yeah, he is just
Even though it's very weird because Seagal like attempts a similar accent half the time when he's like, "What you looking at, boy?" And then he just goes back to his Seagal voice after that with like no transition, and he just switches between like sometimes he has an accent and then drops it. This time it'll literally be line by line. He's switching back and forth.
Yeah.
Probably the only consistent thing about his acting is that in almost every one of these movies, he tries out an accent and just swaps on and off throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Dude needs an accent coach.
Honestly.
Dude needs an acting coach.
Yeah, it's weird that because it feels like it's trying to do credit to, Appalachian history and culture and things. Like there's a lot
it opens with a kind of like Ken Burns almost like photo slideshow. Like I swear I thought this was going to be like an NPR produced like documentary or something about Appalachia. Like with the opening and like the credit sequence. Yeah. It's very strange. It's like using actual archival footage, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And like all the music is sort of in a bluegrass style.
Yeah, I kind of felt like I was like taking a trip to Dollywood or something, which was nice. Like some good, childhood nostalgia there.
Yeah, but also all the people in here are just so bad. Like they're mean.
And are just depicted like every single Appalachian stereotype that you can think of, other than
they're toothless.
They drink like and they're drinking like Jim Beam, but they're not drinking like moonshine. But like other than that, they have pretty much every like Appalachian stereotype on display. This is not saying that this is the first movie that has depicted a specific culture or people in a stereotypical manner. Let's be very clear. This one, weirdly enough, 0 black people present, but still manages to be racist to black people like multiple times.
Yeah, there are no black people in this movie.
Yeah, and this is in Kentucky. Spoiler alert: black people live in Kentucky.
Well, no, there are black people, and they're in the archival photographs in the opening sequence. Yeah. There's a family praying before dinner.
This implies a history to this region.
Yeah.
That I don't think the movie's right, or that we're ready to contend with, but still manages multiple times to feel like very like, okay.
Yeah, it just gets real uncomfortable sometimes.
Or like all the time.
But Marty Stewart shows up, and that's cool.
Okay, so is that the one redeeming quality that you can assign to this? Is that
you
Marty
get
Stewart
like half a song from Marty Stewart?
And it's very funny because like this movie has other at that time performing country musicians who are playing characters, like they're named characters.
Randy Travis.
But it's just Marty Stewart and Travis Tritt play
themselves. So like so I guess in the universe of the story, Marty Stewart and Travis Tritt like actually show up to a small town in Appalachia and play this concert under like
of course they show up long enough to play this random barbecue, but let Seagal actually play and let Jack Taggart play and be impressed by him.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so convenient because the one guy in the band was drunk and couldn't play anymore, so he took over for him.
Right. It's very... I don't know why like every other character is played by a country musician playing like a character and these two are playing themselves. It's... Other than he like literally wanted to say like Marty Stewart showed up and like was impressed by my guitar playing. Mm-hmm. It's very weird.
Now I do want to say, just like looking at the cast list and reading a little bit about some of their histories, a lot of them are actually from Appalachia.
Yeah.
A lot of these actors and actresses are from that region of the country. So that's cool.
Which is very weird. There's way less like behind the scenes like gossip from this movie compared to others. Like we don't have anything that compares to like, he got put in a headlock until he like crapped his pants. Like was somebody on set just like could somebody just say to him, could you not? Was somebody like, what are you doing?
Like your character isn't from here.
This is where I grew up.
Yeah. Like Seagal's character, where is he from? I don't think he's from the region.
It's weird. They don't like specifically tell you where he's from. He's very clearly an outsider. Ooh.
Here's the thing. Is this the first movie where we don't get like 10 minutes of someone explaining his like super secret CIA Navy background?
So I noticed this at one point, kind of.
Okay, we almost made it.
Well, because
all the guys walk into the bar after he beats him up and says, "Oh, this guy's way too good," and one of them says, "We might need a grenade launcher."
Well, there's that, but also like they don't say like, "Oh, actually, before he was in the EPA, he was in the CIA or something." But at one point, a character does say like, "This guy must be like CIA or FBI or something." Like they want that assumption to be out there, but this is I think the first
the ego
time,
boost.
Right. This is the first time where it's not explicitly, but like the characters are like, he must be one of these because he's so good. So
yeah, he definitely doesn't work for the EPA.
We don't quite get away from that.
No. But we're almost there. Almost made it out.
Do you guys have any? I was raw dogging this one again. I wasn't taking notes. Do you guys have any?
I was taking notes. Let me see if there's anything worth mentioning. I didn't like this movie very much. I did. So for context, I did watch this over 2 sittings. Like I kind of watched it with that first part that was really like when I was not attached, and then the second half, like 2/3 that I watched, I was kind of a little more invested. Or did you see this all in one sitting? Did you watch this today? I watched this in 2 sittings. Nice. I got to the point where, like, I got an hour in, which is where you really start to feel it, in my opinion. And I'm like, I have to stop and come back later. And I did, and finished it today.
I was watching the first half, like, on my lunch break at work, and I literally, like, almost fell asleep, so I had to stop. That's the context of my viewing experience.
One last thing. So, like, the villain's plan here doesn't make any sense. We already talked about, like, in general, like, this money-making scheme doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, he could just have these... I mean, this is something that we do right now. He could just have his coal mines approved for storing toxic materials. Like, you can do that.
Yeah, but that's not
corrupt. And then at the end of the movie, he refuses arrest, which he's proven that he has, like, a giant team of lawyers that can get him out of, like, basically anything. He should have just let himself get arrested and then walk out the next day. Like... Instead, he tries to shoot Steven Seagal twice.
He like tries to get himself killed, like death by cop.
Yeah, and I don't understand. He should have just said, "Oh, okay, take me in, and then I'll post bail, like in the morning, and we'll fight it and win."
Like obviously, he could just before he only got the fine over like the illegal chemical dumping. So Seagal's like, I'm going to be on you, like, basically a fly on a horse crap. So I'm going to get you. And he gets him for like basically the deaths of everyone who was killed to cover this up.
Yeah.
And really this guy he would pin it on someone else. He'd be like, it wasn't me. I didn't know about it. It was my underlings. Like he would so easily fight these charges as like a rich billionaire.
It was my son who was literally directly in charge of all operations in the region.
Right. Like he straight up does not know. He like legitimately, he's obviously involved. Like he's obviously like guilty in a moral sense, but he like straight up does not know exactly what is happening for the first half of the movie. Like until he steps in, he could very easily get out of this.
His son. Okay, this was actually one of the lines that I remembered and really bothered me. when his son comes to him and he says, I have it down, how am I going to take over one day if you don't let me run my own operations? For the first half of the movie, that's what you're doing. Right.
He literally says, take care of it. Like, that's it.
Your dad just like gave you license to go take care of this however you see fit, and then halfway through the movie you decide that he's overbearing. I don't. What was the movie trying to do with this character? I don't understand.
But you didn't mention the best part of that conversation, and that's where the dad says, "I'm gonna live forever."
Oh yeah,
I did like that. I know that. I was just like, what? What is it? When he was like, "Oh, you don't have to worry about that. We'll live forever." I forgot about that line. So you said it now. It was so weird because I'm like, what? Was that a plot? Was that something that was dropped?
Is this a sci-fi film? And he's like has all that nuclear waste down there to like build a machine that makes him live forever.
But yes, it is very funny that he goes from like, I don't even need you to bring, like, my security guards are standing outside, I'm going to keep playing my poker game, to like, I am going to get myself killed. Like, it's a flip of a switch.
Yeah, but he could have just said, okay, take me in, I'll post bail in the morning, and then we'll just settle this out in court like we did last time, and you'll lose again, because that's how this goes.
He could, I mean, I'm sorry, Hans, yes, we're positing too much logic to this. He could post bail and just Roman Polanski the situation and live in France for like all we care. Like,
yeah. And this could have been a legal situation because they made it to be about nuclear waste and not about just the coal mine being a coal mine. Like they added this extra thing in there, which actually makes the whole thing dumber.
Wow,
shocking. I know.
Shocking.
It's a Steven Seagal film, and they added unnecessary details that made the whole thing dumb.
But again, the green Nickelodeon goop was very funny, so don't take this away from me. It was like the best part of the movie.
The green Nickelodeon goop was like the only polluting going on here. Like when
you don't actually see the barrel.
Like everything was sealed until Seagal started shooting up the place, and then stuff was
actually
leaking.
He's the first one to spill any of the Nickelodeon slime.
Right.
He's the first one to do that.
Like, they literally walk into a room where none of them feel like they need to wear protective gear or anything. It's a bunch of dudes in, like, jean shorts and, like, button-up shirts.
Yeah.
Clearly they're fine here. And then he starts shooting it all up and spilling it everywhere.
Yeah. My only other note is from that same scene. Like, they all run out of the mine in the same direction, out of the same, like, entrance that they went into. And somehow Seagal finds another exit to this coal mine.
Hear me out, Hans. They don't all run out of the mine in the same direction because all of the bad guys run out of the mine in the same direction. Steven Seagal somewhat briskly strides out in the same direction. Like, literally
Okay, well, he briskly strides, but he briskly strides in a different direction. He comes out of the cave, or out of the mine, in a completely different place than all the other dudes.
Right, but it's just, I don't know, the thing is, it seems like he kind of is, and then he isn't. Like, he's going the same, and then just it doesn't follow.
No, like when the exit of the place is completely separate. Like they're all laying on the ground moaning because they're like acid have all over their bodies.
Right.
And he is like, it's a completely different exterior of the place where he is. He like somehow he manages to find stumble into another entrance.
It seemed like he started running in the same direction and then just came out a different entrance, but I might not have been paying enough attention.
No idea.
But again, the main point here that I think we need to focus on is that he barely hits, like, a light jog on his way out while this entire cave is collapsing.
Oh, and then my final note, the last note I have. Why the super heavy film grain over the closing
I don't know.
sequence?
It kind of has a fun and interesting texture to it.
Yeah.
Texture.
This movie feels
but you see, like, little imperfections in the film and stuff.
Yeah, like it's interesting. I don't know if it's because it's trying to go for like a more rustic Appalachian look or something, like a bit dirtier than like the other movies. I don't know.
But like I don't know what this movie was shot on, but it feels like it just switches to like 32 or 16 millimeter film at the end.
Yeah, I mean,
so you have like this real crunchy film.
I mean,
look
this
to
does. I'm fairly certain this one has a lower budget than like most of his other movies before this. So that
it's like Harry Dean Stanton's playing on his guitar at the end of the movie,
which is actually pretty. I like that.
Which is actually that was kind of nice. Actually, I sat and listened to the credits for a little bit.
I forgot about something.
Oh, what?
I have one other thing. that really irritated me. I completely forgot about it because it was so early in the movie. I should have written it down. You remember when she's going to do her shopping and the clerk at the store says he's really sorry, but like you don't have enough money because people haven't been buying enough of your honey. So Seagal walks up to the counter and says like, I'll take all the honey, which is like a cool move. Good guy move, whatever. And then he also buys the groceries that she left behind because she couldn't afford them, right?
Yeah.
He never gives her those groceries.
Yeah.
Like she left behind a jar of peanut butter and some jam and some stuff, and like they made a point to like pan the camera down and like show her face because she was like so bummed, like, oh, I don't have enough money to have like the fun stuff that I wanted to buy. He buys it and then he doesn't give it to her.
Yep. No, you're not wrong. I had the same thought. Like
I was infuriated by that.
Because, like, buying the honey, like, makes sense. But the fact that he does, like, I'll get the rest of this, like, you expect the next scene is that they're walking out and he's like, oh, here you go. You forgot this or something. Like, he doesn't even, like, try to get... A regular character would just give it to her and be like, oh, this is yours. But, again, that... Actually, can we... So I don't truly have notes on this, but I do feel like we need to talk about the romance of this movie somewhat. This is, again, like we said at the beginning of this, it's not actually like he is pulling off like a convincing or charming main character, but I do have to acknowledge that this is like the first time he is like interacting with a person and a relationship forms on screen rather than just like we meet and then you end up as the love interest at the end, because that's what these movies do.
It kind of
it's not well constructed, but it exists.
He sees her in the church just like out of the corner of his eye, and then after they get out of church, he goes and hits on her. I wouldn't say that that's like a well-formed romance.
No, not that. No,
not a well-formed romance, but a romance forming and not just like existing.
But like in Under Siege,
you're not wrong. Yeah. You're not wrong. I'm just saying it's like you're giving it a lot of credit, but I think you're giving it a lot of credit because of what we're used to. It still does not deserve the credit.
No. You have to remember that. But like in Under Siege, he just like kind of says some lines at this girl and then they kiss at the end. But like other than the fact that this is a movie, there is nothing to insinuate that they're like romantically attached. In this one, like, yes, he like sees her at church, immediately just is this like charmless, like boorish, like, misogynistic, like, pickup artist.
Horrible.
But still like... He stops by her house and he's fixing the porch and then he's invited to dinner. Like, it actually, I'm not giving it credit. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's pulled off. I'm not saying it's convincing. But like, the movie does take the time to like ramp it up into a relationship when ordinarily it's just a roll of the dice, flip of the coin. Does he kiss the woman like at the end? Like, nothing in the movie will tell you if that's going to happen or not. And the movie just decides it.
I see what you're saying.
This is the first time where I'm like, oh, they're actually interacting throughout. And in a way that like it feels like a relationship is forming to some extent.
No, I'm with you. That makes sense.
Of course, it still has a Seagal thing. Like, he walks up to her right out of church, and of course, like, and her and also the twins, it doesn't matter. Like, he talks to any woman, he can say like the most disgusting thing you've ever heard, and they're like, you sure are handsome.
Oh, the way he treats the twin girls.
So
awful.
But this is the first time where I'm actually like, wait, they're spending a not insignificant amount of time of him talking, having conversations with this woman.
Yeah.
It's still gross.
Yeah, the way he talks to women in this movie is just so gross. I mean,
again, he movies, like,
but this one,
he
like,
has more time. He has like more time to talk, so he says more disgusting things.
Yeah.
But this actually, I'm like, wait, this actually, every single movie, like, characters fall in love over the course of an hour and a half. Of course, that's not realistic in real life. It has to be condensed, so we accept like, suspension of disbelief. This one requires the littlest suspension of disbelief so far.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah.
Everything with the twins, the two gals, was awful.
And it never comes back up. It's like they're in there twice, and it's only so he can act like a terrible person.
Because the first one is just like, two women like you have a man thinking, give a man ideas. Ew. The second one is like, oh, come to this, what is it, the party or the barbecue or whatever, if you win this. And he's like, what do I win? And the one's like, you win her. Ew, gross. It started bad, it got worse. And that's every Seagal movie, but especially here. But yeah, I feel like it is just somewhat worth mentioning that Marg Helgenberger, I feel bad because she probably is like the woman who had of all the women in the Seagal movies, the one who's had to spend the most like time on set with Seagal so far. Because Katherine Heigl, they're in like one scene at the beginning, and then luckily she's like physically separated from Seagal for most of the movie until the end.
And just looking at her filmography, just looking at like the roles she had a couple things, and then she had this, and just for a few more years, just not a whole lot. But then she was in CSI for 260 some odd episodes.
Yeah, for over a decade.
Yeah, she found her stride.
I'm gonna be honest. Like I was like, while I'm watching this movie, I'm like, wait, I definitely recognize this woman from something. I had to look it up, and then I haven't seen it recently, but weirdly enough, as like a middle schooler, I was a big CSI fan. I didn't really get into any of the other crime shows. I never watched
CSI, and I did recognize her.
I know
she's in something.
My first instinct is like, oh, yeah, you should watch it. It's good. I don't actually know if it's good. I was like in middle school and I watched it. I remember actually really weird things from like random things from that show, but I did enjoy her. I think Mark Helgenberger was good in CSI and was one of the better actors or actresses in this one.
Well, great. Yeah, no, she was.
Actually, I'm going to be honest. There wasn't really anyone I didn't like other than Seagal. Chris Christopherson's great. Stephen Lang, bad guy from Avatar, he's great. Harrington Stanton, amazing. Like, I don't know. Some weren't as convincing because they were handed incredibly flat characters, so they portrayed incredibly flat characters, but
Chris
I can't blame that on the actors.
Son, I think.
Chris Christopherson, what?
Chris Christopherson's son, Oren Jr. He doesn't have much to do in this movie, which is weird because he's supposed to be like the ringleader.
Well, but weirdly enough, he doesn't have much to do, but ends up playing a surprisingly pivotal role because he's the one that ends up like testifying against his dad to get him prison and life, apparently. Yeah. Which again, we don't need to get back into it.
Which also, like, why I don't understand, but
yeah, it's a very unconvincing. Like after one sentence from Seagal, this guy who's been like the bad guy working for his dad and take over the business his entire life is like, okay.
It's not after once. He beats up like an entire bar's worth of dudes. Yeah, and then threatens to beat him up.
Yeah, but still, he like says like the guy's still like, oh, I don't know about this, and Skull says one thing. He's like, okay, I'll testify against my dad. Yeah. Yes, it was after he beat up 20 guys, but every one of these movies is he beats up 20 guys and then says this one thing. Like that's just yada yada yada. That's just the
what does it take to change a man's life?
That's what's the Chipple or whatever, you know.
Just need Conan time. Says.
Yeah, he basically does the same thing to this kid. Yeah, like he hits a bunch of dudes in the nuts and they say, "Ow, my nuts," and then the guy completely has like a moral change of compass change.
Changed his life.
It's wild. Yeah. Else that
we could sit here and talk about all the people who went on to do better things. I mean, pretty much everyone else in this movie was already famous. At least in country music. This one isn't.
Other than like Mark Helgenberger, and I guess Stephen Lang, we have to acknowledge that he then went on to be in like 2 of the like top 4 highest grossing movies of all time. Yeah. So like that's more accomplished. I'm not going to say better. But other than him, it is kind of, rather than what we've seen so far, which is like relatively undiscovered person who go on to do better things later, it's like person was doing their own thing and it was good. They were in this movie and then they just kind of went back to doing their own thing and it was just as good.
Like for some reason, a bunch of people who had pretty solid careers just like stopped off to do this thing for Steven and then went on to just keep doing what they were already doing.
I mean, Chris Christopherson would do Blade after this, so clearly much better. Amazing. 10 out of 10 film. And so Chris, Marg, and Steven will say, I think even they're all somewhat fairly established at this point. I don't know. I think if anything, Stephen Lang would be the closest, like.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what was Chris Christopherson.
Would like hockey stick growth after this movie.
Before this. Oh, he was doing a whole bunch of stuff. Oh my gosh.
Chris Christopherson? Yeah, dude's been just active in the game for
prolific.
Or Marg, because she went on to do CSI for literally like half of my life.
I really did not like this movie.
No, this
is a rough one.
It was rough for me.
I promise I'm not trying to just be a contrarian to Hans, but I, all said and done, was much more positive to this movie than I thought it would, and much more positive to this movie than I have been on other ones. It obviously does not clear the Under Siege or Under Siege 2 bar for me. But it's probably just below that. Like, I would rather rewatch this than I think any other movie that doesn't have the word under or siege in it. like, I think this is on my ranking. I think this is like at a solid 2 stars, number 3, I'll say, of the Seagal films we've watched thus far.
Like, I think...
Because it was very slow. It was like going to I really thought this was going to be like bottom of my list in the first, like, I don't know why, for the first like half hour. And I don't even know I can't even say, oh, this happened and I liked it. I didn't like any part of it, but I just kind of, maybe it wasn't the movie change, it was I changed. Like, I was just kind of more on board for some reason. And I couldn't tell you why.
This one just, like, wore me down. And I can't.
I mean, it might have even worn me down until I just said, okay, I guess, enough. And that I kind of accepted it. But at least between the two...
You said it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, but, like...
it is what it is my entire way through this movie.
This one was, like, just competent enough for me to be totally uninteresting basically the entire way through.
That's
like
fair.
It wasn't good enough to like
disagree
tell
with that.
some sort of interesting story, and it wasn't bad in any sort of fun way. It was bad because the conversations were awkward. It was bad because like you had these long sequences of people just driving and playing like half-baked country music over it. It was bad because people just like suddenly know things that no one told them, and there was no way they could have found out. Like,
it was bad because Steven Seagal was just passively making fun of people from that area the entire time.
Yeah, like
calling
Under
them
Siege
hicks.
2 was bad because they're like, there are too many explosions in this shot. It was bad because, like, this knife fight is funny and ridiculous. Like, it was bad in fun ways. This was bad in just, like, just exhausting ways for me.
Which is really weird for me, because ordinarily that's what I need to somewhat enjoy this, is I need, like, Under Siege 2, where it's bad in fun ways. This one, I agree, it was just kind of competently bad across the board, and I was just like, okay.
Like, no one did
I just accept
That's
it.
a new
spectacularly
competently bad across the board. That's a new one.
Well, no one
It doesn't
like,
have peaks and valleys. It's just all,
no one like did a really bad job in a way that was super noticeable. Like,
even we're like comparing it to other things, but there's no moment in this that is as jarring as like ow my nuts to what does it take to change a man. There are other similar moments, but they're just, it's those same things just slightly smoothed out.
I think the only
saber.
time that I got a really good belly laugh, there were a couple of those moments. There were those quotes that we mentioned earlier, and then the glow stick juice flowing out of the barrel.
Yeah,
glow stick juice is pretty good.
But you don't get. I don't think we got enough of the glow stick juice. Like,
no,
only like 3 barrels.
We could have had more glow stick juice.
More
Yeah,
glow stick juice.
I did laugh a little bit. I mentioned this a little bit, but I have to come back to it because they're putting so much emphasis on dumping material into this mine.
I mean, carefully lowering these sealed barrels of material.
Yeah, and I work in the world of, like, I'm on the software side of the water movement, like water logistics.
Wow,
in the fracking world.
In this
Wow.
So like I can see how I have like a primo seat to how much water is being moved around the country, and it's like an absurd amount of this liquid is going places, and to watch this helicopter lower 4 like 55-gallon drums into this mine, and that's like a $30 million deal, is so hysterical to me.
Well, Chris Christopherson even says on the phone, like, we have 15,000 barrels coming in. I'm like, that will take you months to move at the speed you're doing it.
Like, it was
You're doing
just
like one of
so
these every
absurd.
half hour.
It just made me laugh so much that they were like, they had this whole operation with all these guys sitting, waiting, ready for this chopper to come in to lower 4 barrels into this mine, and then they were done for the day. It's like, that's just not how this works.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I kind of came away strangely positive. I couldn't even tell you why I was positive. Everything you said, I 100% agree with.
Only like one person in the movie gets sick, and he's fine.
Yeah, it's like the kid.
He's fine after like a couple days.
Yeah, they don't even explain that.
Like the fish are dying, and this kid has a rash.
But he's fine. Like, he gets out of bed like a couple scenes later.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like, okay, we don't need to get into it too much.
We don't need to get into it.
Yeah. The first scene when he's talking to the kids is just very weird and unsettling.
Oh yeah, he just invites himself into the house.
Oh yeah, he's
like,
what's your name? That's a pretty name. What's your name? That's a pretty name. He has a southern accent for that scene. It's very strange.
Well,
the dad is
thought...
distrustful, and it's supposed to be like he's a dumb hick, distrustful of this like city outsider. But really, it's just he's distrustful of Steven Seagal, like hanging out alone with his kids with no.
I was he just invited himself into the house.
I was actually thinking while watching that, like what he's saying is weird. The fact that like their mom is not there when he's having this conversation is weird, even though she's like in the house. But the way that he was interacting with children, just like as an actor interacting with someone, looked a lot more genuine. And like I felt like he was a better actor in that moment, even though it was a little uncomfortable.
Graded on a Seagal curve, I suppose, but
like it seemed like he was more comfortable doing that than speaking to, like trying to act against like a trained actor.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm just waiting for this is much later on, but I'm just waiting for a good man when he sees a small child and greets this child with "What's happening?"
What's happening?
How many more movies do I have to do before I see that?
Oh, so many. We still have like 70% of these movies to go before we get there. I do just want to talk about real quick the director of this movie, Felix Alcala. I hope I pronounced that right.
Alcala.
He hasn't actually. Yeah, you're probably more right than I was. He has one of the more interesting like post Fire Down Below careers out of everyone here. He like if you name a TV show, he probably directed an episode of it. Is what I'm seeing.
Oh wow.
But only ever
one episode.
Yeah, like 1 to 3 episodes. There's a couple, like The Good Wife and Third Watch. No, Third Watch he was a consultant on. The Good Wife, he directs 12 episodes, and ER, he directs 12 episodes. But other than that, it's like Breaking Bad, 1 episode. Like State of Affairs, 1 episode.
Which episode
like,
of Breaking Bad?
Quantico. Negro y Azul. I actually did look that up because I thought you'd ask.
Yeah.
He directs Negro y Azul in season 2.
Okay.
Season 2, episode 7, specifically. Which is a good episode. Like, he can competently direct. Like, there's shows here I'm like, oh, sure.
Sure.
Well, How to Get Away with Murder, Charmed, like, Quantico. He has this movie, and he doesn't actually do a ton of movies. He has, like, 6 movies, and none of them seem to be too good, but he's actually a pretty decent, like, he'll come in and, like, guest direct 1 episode of your show and do, like, a pretty good job. Castle. House, Law and Order Special Victims Unit, CSI Miami. He did actually do CSI Crime Scene Investigation, so he worked back.
Well, this sort of makes sense. So one note that I have in my notes, probably I think is my first note that we didn't talk about, is that as the movie's beginning, I said this feels like the TV movie that you make to end a TV series, and like all these flashbacks are back to like the last few episodes of the TV series to like prime me for what's happening at the end here. Like, the TV series was about Seagal and this other EPA agent. I can't say that with a straight face.
And it's like, it was canceled, so this is the one that wraps it up.
Yeah, and then, like, the fans got together and said, hey, make a movie. And then
this is the Fire Down Below, Fire Walk With Me.
Yeah, so the studio said, okay, we'll make a movie to, like, finish the series, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. It went for, like, 2 seasons.
The movie went straight to DVD.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I said this was the Firewalk with me. I should have said this was the Serenity of the. Do not
do that. This is the Serenity of nothing.
Serenity now.
No, don't say that. Although I will say, funnily enough, this does appear to be the last theatrical release before we enter their primarily direct-to-video era of Seagal.
Oh.
Wait, so what's the next one?
Marking a transition here.
This is a transition. The next one is The Patriot direct-to-video. And I can't guarantee. I don't think they're all direct-to-video. I think he does still have some theatrical releases, but boy, it's a lot of direct-to-video after this. This is the last of the entirely theatrical run of Seagal. It's gone. It's done.
The Patriot. A deadly virus threatens to wipe out an entire Rocky Mountain town.
Well, all right. So thank you, Hans, for perfectly segueing us out. Join us, same Seagal time, same Seagal place.
Tune in next time.
1998's The Patriot.
Oh God.
Wait, it's based on a novel called The Last Canadian. You can't call your movie The Patriot on a book called The Last Canadian.
I'm so not looking forward to this.
Oh, we're in for something.
No.
All right. Join us then. I'm sure when you're listening in the future, we will have had a great time and we'll be happy to discuss it. But
wait, hold on. I'm sorry. The topmost review for the Patreon on Letterboxd is they gave it a 0.5 star, and they said, "I once switched the DVD for this with the Mel Gibson one at my local Blockbuster when I was a little." Still not sure who ended up with the better deal.
That is very good. Props to that guy. Props to the ultimate hustle.
Oh no.
All right. We'll see you then. We'll hear us then. Bye.
That means one of us has to die. Don't mention it, brother.